Hello, I'm Rico Cavella, and welcome to this episode of Fearless Aging, where in every episode, my guests and I, we strive to offer you proven tips and strategies that you can implement immediately to greatly improve your overall health and well-being. So we're here to inspire you and empower you to become your best self so you can go out and make a bigger positive difference in the world. And the title of today's episode, I'm really excited about because I know this is something that so many people really need some help with. It's entitled Food is Medicine for Brain Health, Immune Function, and Quality of Life. And our expert guest today is John E. Lewis, PhD. He's the founder and president of Dr. Lewis Nutrition. He has spent most of his career developing a unique approach as someone who walks the walk through all of his combined professional and personal experience to obtain optimal health through nutrition, dietary supplements, and exercise. Throughout his research career, he has evaluated many different nutritional approaches to enhancing well being, particularly for brain health, immune function, and counteracting aging. He can separate fact from fiction regarding how to utilize nutrition and dietary supplements to help you achieve and maintain optimal health. So, if you need a trusted source of information on products and services, then look no further than Dr. Lewis and how he can help you achieve your health related goals. So, Dr. John Lewis, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate the kind introduction.
Yeah, well, again, this is just a topic we were just talking about that it is very confusing from I think for most people, what supplements do you really need supplements? What supplements are best? Which ones do I need? And how can I improve my overall, particularly brain health, we're going to talk about today. So maybe we could just get started just briefly how you got interested in this and how you began to really research about nutrition and nutritional supplements.
Well, I think it's like the Beatles said, it's a long and winding road, and I'm still on the long and winding road. I don't think I'm anywhere near a finished product yet, but I I would date my interest in nutrition and supplements all the way back to my competitive bodybuilding days. I got into drug-free competitive bodybuilding as a college student, and I don't really think most Americans eat for health today. I mean, it's despite we have a growing wave of health interests and people like you and me, but still, if you look at how much chronic disease we're riddled with as a country, it's obvious people are not eating for health or eating for taste. And so I grew up the same way. I grew up eating, just basically for taste. I didn't have any models of health in my family. My parents, my grandparents, they all were loving and supporting, but they were not eating for health, they were eating for taste.
Hmm.
But even though bodybuilding was not like a long in terms of the scope of my life to this point, it was not a long period of my life. I realized pretty quickly, number one, I was not willing to do drugs. It wasn't worth the risk. And number two, I was not going to make a living doing it. So it really didn't last that long. I mean, again, it was a few years of my life, but what it did for me, what it accomplished for me, was that it really helped me change my perspective on nutrition and food. Because if you are trying to achieve anything in bodybuilding, you have to be very systematic, very regimented, very focused on what you're sticking in your mouth because you are trying to achieve something. And so I credit bodybuilding for kind of that first shift in my life, even though it was really more for a sports or physical performance perspective as opposed to a health perspective. It was a very important shift for me. But later, as I started evaluating just a lot of the nutrition in the literature, or a lot of the nutritional science, I should say, in the literature, it began to dawn on me the problems associated with eating animal food. And so I'm somewhere between, I don't know the exact date, I'd really have to kind of think about it, but between 27 and 28 years ago, I shifted from eating like, especially most Southerners do, eating a lot of dairy, a lot of beef, to a plant based diet. And that's what I've been eating for the last, I'm not sure exactly the date, 27, 28 years ago. And then obviously being a bodybuilder, part of your routine, you think of taking creatine or branch chain amino acids or even protein or inosin, things like that. But those were, again, more for a sports performance perspective at that point. I didn't really get into the idea of dietary supplements for health and wellness until a little bit later in life as I shifted my focus and my perspective. And then where things really took off for me and why I'm sitting here to you talking to you today was about 20 people, I'm sorry, 20 years ago, two people came into my life who introduced to me their story about polysaccharides. And up until that point in my life, the only thing I thought of saccharides were good for were for sources of fuel for the cells. I had no idea the differences in the saccharides that we get from different types of foods, and then how incredibly efficacious some of those especially the polysaccharides, and we can talk about different saccharides if you like, but the polysaccharides from aloe vera and rice bran, I now, after this almost 20-year journey of research and what I've been putting into this in terms of leaving academics and now building a business, it's just been incredible. I mean, to see how these polysaccharides are so beneficial, it's just been an amazing journey. And so I'm here as an advocate today for people to understand that dietary supplements can be very valuable. I mean, the two that come from aloe vera and rice bran, number one, I live here, my family and I, we live in Miami. We actually have some aloe vera growing in our yard here, but I'm not out there every day, snipping leaves and sucking the. And
Oh,
number
gee.
three, you could never consume enough of that gel to get the benefit from the polysaccharide content that you would need to have a health promoting effect. It just wouldn't be possible. I mean, you'd make yourself sick trying to suck down enough of that gel to just get the polysaccharides from that gel that you need. So we've done the hard work for you in terms of creating a formulation that has all of the water extracted out of it. And then on the rice side, I didn't know this till I started digging into it, but about 70 to 80%, from what I understand, if the statistics are accurate, about 70 to 80% of the rice sold in the world is white rice.
Hmm.
So if you think of rice, it has about three basic primary layers. You have the outer husk that we can't eat, that's basically like cardboard. Then underneath the husk, you have the bran. That's where all the real nutrition is. That's the brown bran part that gives brown rice its name. Most of that, again, 70 to 80% of the rice that's sold in the world, most of it has the bran stripped off, and now you have that white endosperm left that we call white rice, which is basically digestible starch. And so unfortunately, most of the rice bran is either thrown away or fed to livestock. So humans are not even benefiting from the most nutritious, valuable part of that plant. But again, it is loaded not only with with the polysaccharides, but lots of other nutrients that provide the raw materials that our cells need to function properly. So, Rico, here I am today after conducting all these clinical trials with these two polysaccharides and showing just time and time again. I mean, just from our little lab here at the University of Miami at the medical school, what we showed is impressive enough, let alone all the other work that's been done around the world on these two polysaccharides. So, again, you're not eating aloe vera. No one eats aloe vera. Most of the world is not eating brown rice, they're eating white rice. So it's a very good argument to say, take your aloe polysaccharide, ace-mannan, acetylated polymannose, it's got several different synonyms, and take your rice bran in a dietary supplement that's easy, simple, quick. You don't have to change your diet. I don't care if you're into the carnivore movement and all that stuff. You still can benefit from a few hundred milligrams to a couple of grams of these polysaccharides every day. So
Well,
that's
John.
what I would tell anybody that you can benefit from dietary supplements.
Well, John. First of all, I think maybe you should tell our audience, people who don't know what polysaccharides are. What are
Absolutely.
polysaccharides?
So, and that, and I'm glad you asked me that because that was hopefully that was what I was hoping we'd get to in the next point. So, saccharide, carbohydrate, sugar, generically speaking, those are all synonyms. They are the same thing that for the last, 50 years, we've been conditioned as Americans to think anytime we hear the word sugar, it immediately means what? Bad. Like there's no possibility that a sugar could be good for us. That is number one, at best, an ignorant statement. Number two, it's factually incorrect. And number three, I think there are some people out there being intellectually disingenuous when they say that because they know better. Saccharides in chemistry have four basic types. You have monosaccharides, mono, one, saccharide sugar, one sugar molecule like high fructose corn syrup. I completely agree. It spikes your insulin, it spikes your glucose. It's used in everything today: sodas, cakes, cookies, candy. I mean, you name it. If you're not reading your label and looking out for things like high fructose corn syrup, you're making a mistake. If you eat it occasionally, probably no big deal. But if you're eating that stuff regularly every day, you're probably setting yourself up for metabolic problems. Second most in complexity, disaccharide, Di2 saccharide, two sugar molecules like sucrose, table sugar. Third level of complexity, oligosaccharide. That is the type of sugar found in breast milk of all mammals. It's a very common saccharide that, again, any mammal's breast milk will have. It kind of has like a prebiotic effect. But then the most complex is the polysaccharide, polymini saccharide sugar. You literally have hundreds of glucose units attached together by these very sophisticated glycosidic bonds. They cannot even be drawn on a piece of paper. They are so complex, they are like 5D structures, and they have all of this coded information, way more than amino acids, way more than fatty acids, certainly way more than vitamins and minerals, very simple structures. And all of that coded information is what our genes interpret with anything, not just with these polysaccharides. That's literally anything that we stick in our mouths. But that coded information helps to drive our cellular functioning literally in every single cell in our body, all of our 30 plus trillion cells. And that's why it is so crucial when you put these polysaccharides into the system. It drives so much cellular functioning. It's essentially the bioengineering of life. We need oxygen as our first nutrient, and then we need amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals. But these polysaccharides are very crucial in all of that machinery. And so when I hear somebody say, some so-called expert, some so-called knowledgeable person in nutrition and health say all sugar is bad for you, that is a garbage statement. It's factually incorrect. And again, if you're ignorant about that, I've just taken the cover off of your eyes. You're no longer ignorant. You have to, it's all about context. And for me, as a scientist, as a writer, as somebody who's careful about the language, context is king in this situation. So all sugar is not bad for you. And in fact, these complex sugars, not only are they not bad for you, I would put them up against anything else that Mother Nature provides for us for a health promoting effect, right there with curcumin, ginger, boswellia, any other plant that you can think of that has known health promoting effects. I would put aloe vera and rice bran right there with it. No
Okay.
question about it.
Yeah, I just want to add, John, for people to know that our brain runs primarily on blood sugar, on sugar. So it is
That's right.
crucial to get the right kind of sugar as well. And also, I want to tell our audience, stay tuned to the end. We've still got about halfway to go here. I know John has put together. He has some really great nutritional products. He has one particularly for brain health that includes those polysaccharides you've been talking about. So, and he's going to offer you a big discount on your first order. But let's get back to just a little bit more. I want to get a little bit of your feedback on just basic nutrition. Why nutrition is so important to your health, and also on why we need just briefly why we need nutritional supplements, and then how can someone determine what as far as a complete supplement regimen. How can they determine what a supplement regimen would be right for them?
These are great questions as well. I deal with this a lot. So, number one, again, when it comes to the polysaccharides, you're not eating aloe vera. And even if you're eating brown rice every day, I would argue if you're past middle age, and is certainly if you're past middle age with a health challenge of any significance, you need more than just what you're getting from brown rice. Like you're maybe eating what, a cup of brown rice every so often. So, taking a polysaccharide based dietary supplement like ours, we've done that hard work for you. We've put it into a formula that you can have you can expect to have a therapeutic benefit. So that's on the polysaccharide side. Now we can't have. It's difficult. There's no assay. There's no test to say, well, you're low on polysaccharides. Unfortunately, there's nothing like that. It's just basically looking at like pre and post data from our work in our Alzheimer's study, our multiple sclerosis study, our non-alcoholic fatty liver disease study, our HIV study. We've conducted several of these clinical trials with looking at how starting at baseline when people first start taking these polysaccharides, and then over a period of time looking at the same cells in the body or biomarkers in the body, and then looking at the changes over time. That's how we know these things work. But more generically speaking, the best example I could give all of our listeners is vitamin D. So we know that unfortunately about 70% of Americans are either insufficient or deficient in vitamin D. Rico, that's a terrible, terrible state of an indictment of where we are today. Vitamin D is known to have at least about 4,500 of our genes it interacts with. So out of our 40 or so thousand genes, you're talking well over 10% of our genes have direct interaction with vitamin D. It's actually more than a vitamin. It almost functions like a hormone. And of course, our best source of that is UVB radiation from sunlight. But most of the people are terrified now of getting, skin cancer, whether it's melanoma or something else. So most people have been so terrified of getting sun exposure, which is absolutely ridiculous as well, that they don't even get out in the sun anymore.
Right.
And so if you are in that insufficient or deficient range, I would highly encourage you, number one, to get your vitamin D checked every year. It's like $20, $30. It's a very inexpensive test. Get that level checked. If you're in the 30, 20 or below range, you are in bad shape. You need to get that up quickly and take a cheap, vitamin D is pretty cheap. Take a D3 supplement. It's relatively inexpensive. So get your level up 50, 60, 70. There's a lot of debate on what's considered optimal, but at least get it in that range. So that way it helps you to not only keep your bones healthy. A lot of people think vitamin D is just about your bone health, which is certainly true, but it's literally functioning in your body from head to toe. So that's one good example of why people could consider a dietary supplement that contains vitamin D. And then, of course, with any D, you need to take your K2 along with it. D3 and K2 work synergistically. So I would encourage anybody to take those two vitamins together. Don't just take one or the other. Take them in conjunction because they help each other to work synergistically.
Yeah,
And then,
John,
of course,
that's some really good information. I have a short message, to 60-second message, and then we'll get back and we'll continue. So here's a short message from our.
Now, in just 17 minutes, you can get and stay fit and look and feel your best for life. This will be a life-changing and life-saving experience for you. Yes, it's true. Scientific studies have shown the Fast Fit 17 system is the fastest way to achieve maximum results in the shortest amount of time. This is a true fitness breakthrough. This system was developed particularly for busy people over 40 who know they need and want to get into better shape and have more energy, but feel they don't have the time. Now, time is no longer an issue. We want everyone to take advantage of this fitness breakthrough. So, for a limited time, you can get the entire program for only $17. So don't miss out. Order now at fastfit17.com.
All right, we're back with Dr. John Lewis. So, John, tell our audience what are some of the other essential supplements that you think people definitely should be taking?
well, much like vitamin D, magnesium is another one that people unfortunately are just so deficient in. Magnesium has at least 400 known metabolic actions, so it's a very, very important mineral. And again, most people are deficient in it. They're not eating enough leafy greens, nuts, seeds, foods that have good magnesium content. So take your your magnesium. There's debate on which one's the most bioavailable, whether it's bisglycinate, citrate, glycinate. Any of those would be good. I wouldn't take oxide or carbonate. Those are probably lower on the bioavailability side.
Yeah.
But definitely take your your magnesium. B12 is another good example. B12 can be commonly tested. It takes quite a bit of time. Actually, the liver is very efficient in recycling B12, but nonetheless, if you're feeling fatigued, if you feel like you don't have a lot of energy, if you have cold extremities, if you have tingling, can be signs of B12 deficiency. So I would definitely get that tested as well. And then, of course, a lot of women have anemia due to maybe heavy menstrual issues or just lack of good nutrition in general. So you can get your iron tested. That's also very important, not just for women, but men as well. So, there are a number of nutrients that we can test. Of course, vitamin C is something very, very important as well. Vitamin C has been looked at for ages, going all the way back to Linus Pauling's work, where he showed the importance of vitamin C, again, in so many different metabolic activities. But these are all common vitamins and minerals that we, think of that are very important. And yet, if we're not eating, and again, this is a controversial argumentative statement, whatever an optimal diet is, again, if you're carnivore versus plant-based like me, then optimal to those people mean very different things. But nonetheless, at the core, at the foundation of all of this, if you're not getting enough micronutrition, I mean, it's one thing to get all the macronutrients, your protein, fat, carbohydrates, but if you're not getting the micronutrients that the cells need to function properly, that's really where the rubber hits the road. And that's where you need to make good evaluations. So, in general, what I like to tell people is eat like the rainbow, eat as many colors as you can. And that's a very simple way of getting people to understand I need to eat diversity in my food. So, different colors mean different nutrients, mean different cellular functions and activities. And all of that information, going back to what I said about the polysaccharides, remember, our genes do nothing until they receive information from the environment first. And then they instruct the cells on how to function properly. So if you eat a wide spectrum of different types of foods and then take some good dietary supplements on top of it, a few of the things that I just mentioned, that's where you'll really start to optimize your health and really benefit from all of this different nutritional power that our cells need to function properly.
Well, John, let me ask you, so how can people know what are the best nutritional supplements they should be taking? Because as you know, we've seen studies where they have gone in and just taken products off the shelf and checked them out. And quite often, a lot of them, either they didn't have the potency that they said, or sometimes they didn't even have the ingredients that they said that were in those. So how can someone know what are the best supplements to be taking?
That's a great question too. Well, without tooting my own horn too much, I would tell you that,
Yeah, yeah.
a company like mine, I mean, I just I didn't really talk. I mean, you mentioned my background, but just so that people really truly understand what this is about for me, I spent 20 years at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine at the medical school running clinical trials in nutrition, dietary supplements, exercise, looked at a lot of different interventions on a whole host. I mean, so many different biomarkers that we looked at. We have a ton of papers. If you go to pubmed.gov, which is the National Institute of Medicine, the library branch or division of the National Institute of Medicine, you can find me. You can find all of the articles that my colleagues and I have published over the last couple of decades. And you can see a lot of the work that we've done, again, in these areas. And so I left academics. It's going on 8 years ago. It's hard to believe, but I have, in other words, I stand by what anything that I'm selling. I stand by that research, that work that's been put into the formulations, the ideas behind it, the published studies behind it. So I would encourage any consumer out there, if you don't buy anything from Dr. Lewis Nutrition, look in terms of what the company has funded for research, what kind of articles that they have supporting their formulations, supporting their products. Are they third party lab tested? Can you get certificates of analysis on their products? I mean, there are several different thresholds, if you will, of being able to determine whether a company has, basically invested the time into research and validation and credibility, like exactly the point that you're driving to. And also, I mean, even though I left academics, I'm still publishing papers, although that's not in probably my top 10 list of priorities. It's still there. I mean, I'm still a science based company. So science is very important as we continue moving forward. And I do have plans of doing research in the future, although it's very expensive. So really any research that is conducted has to be paid for.
Right,
There's no big pot of money out there that just sits there for people, to do whatever
right.
type of research
Yeah,
they
I
want.
understand
It
it.
has to be
Well,
funded.
that's some great information, John. We only have about a minute left, so just kind of talk real quickly about your brain product, and you're going to offer people a good discount when they go to check out your brain product.
Well, under the Dr. Lewis Nutrition brand, we have Daily Brain Care. That's our flagship product. And I'm sorry, we didn't even get to talk about that research
Yeah,
today, but maybe you'll have me back on another time. But
yeah,
that baby, I mean, that inanimate object is the culmination of, again, nearly 20 years of my life. All of this work that my colleagues and I put into it, running these clinical trials in Alzheimer's and multiple sclerosis. So really quickly, we showed clinically and statistically significant improvement in cognitive function in people with moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease with this formulation that we now call Daily Brain Care.
great.
So I
John,
would,
I'm sorry, John. We're just about out of time. So thank you so much for being here and offering that great information. And we'll put the how people can get your product at a good discount. And so, as always, we offer you some great wisdom, great information, but you got to take action on what you learn. So thanks for being here and tell everybody about the Fearless Aging TV show. Thank you very much.